Good morning, everyone. I'm Cindy Shovelwoodcock, and it's been my pleasure to be part of the planning committee and moderating all of the great speakers that we've had today. Learned a lot. And my last job of the day is to introduce Tim, and he has it phonetically spelled out for me here, Eggebraaten.
Very good.
Yeah, good Minnesota name. Having worked in the criminal justice field for 28 years, Tim is an expert in working the beat. Starting his career as a correctional officer in 1989 and as a police officer in 1992. He's held many positions along the way, including chief of police. And when he left law enforcement in 2016, he was excited to accept the role of off-duty chief, allowing him to take his experiences, message, music, and talent to the streets, and right here to Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Tim is a sought-off national speaker, sought-after national sought-off. Sought-off. Yeah. Is a sought-after national speaker, is a gifted storyteller with a powerful and witty perspective on balance, growth, leadership, and life. He spent many years traveling across the country performing as a one-man band, and he now uses his love of music to reinforce his message and help others like us find their rhythm in life. He shares his Detroit Lakes home with his wife, 3 sons, and they enjoy the outdoors, friendships, one another. And you didn't say lakes.
There's a lot of lakes.
Yeah, a lot of lakes.
A lot of lakes.
Detroit area. Please help me welcome off-duty Chief Tim Eggebraaten.
Here's the sing-along portion of the show. Trust me, you'll know your part. Trailer for sale or rent, rooms to let 50 cents. No phone, no pool, no pets. Sing it! Ain't got no cigarettes. You're on the record. 2 hours of pushing that broom by 1. 8 by 12 4-bit. I'm a man of means by no means. Nice. 3rd boxcar, midnight train, destination Bangor, Maine. Old worn out suit and shoes. I don't pay no union dues. Well, I smoke old stogies I have found. Short but not too big around. I'm a man of means by no means. Just this side of the room. Okay, now this side. Everybody bring it home. King of the road. Good night, everybody. Drive safe. Rhythm and harmony. Sometimes that rhythm and harmony is there, and we can almost feel it in our lives. Have you felt your rhythm of life when things were going really well? You felt good physically, your home life was solid, you had a social life and it was going really well. Things were moving and grooving. My friends, have you ever had a time in your life where maybe that rhythm was off? You couldn't find your beat, you weren't sure. Maybe you were hanging out with the wrong kind of people, doing the wrong kind of things, and as a result, your physical health deteriorated. Maybe your home life was clashing a little bit. It's a challenge, isn't it, for all of us to try to find that daily harmony and that rhythm, that beat. My friends, for almost 28 years in the criminal justice field, I had a front row seat to the greatest show on earth. I got to see true heroes in action, police officers, firefighters, emergency medical people, civilians, people doing the right things for the right reasons. They forgot about their own well-being and they helped people. For those same 28 years, I had that same front row seat to watching people do horrible and unspeakable things to little kids, to our seniors, and to themselves in the form of drug overdoses and suicides. Yet in spite of that constant, daily, negative grind, with the help of a lot of different people and by applying some techniques we're going to be talking about today, I stand here before you today a person who is physically, mentally, and spiritually healthy, a person who is optimistic about our future as a society, and a person who feels, at least for today, I feel my rhythm of life and my harmony. Tomorrow might be different. I might have to re-string my guitar. I might have to retune parts of my life to get back into that harmony. You see, I wanted to be a cop all of my life. It's all I ever wanted to be. Kenny and Pat Eggebraaten from Fisher, Minnesota, raised 4 kids. I was the baby and the only boy. Mom loved me the best. Yeah. And they raised us to be caring and conscientious and thoughtful. So I wanted to be a police officer for those reasons. I really, truly wanted to help people. That's why I got into law enforcement. Started my career in corrections, not incarcerated, but working in a jail in Moorhead. And I spent 3 years working there, and I got my first real police job on July 1st, 1992, with the Detroit Lakes Police Department. How many of you are familiar with Detroit Lakes in the late 80s, early 90s, 4th of July? I think I've seen video of you. I am pretty sure I've seen you on video. But the 4th of July in the late 80s, early 90s, our town went from about 8,500 people to an estimated 20,000 people for the 4th of July. Partly because there was at least a rumor that Playboy magazine had listed Detroit Lakes as one of the top 10 beaches. Yeah. So people came to Detroit Lakes by the thousands, and it was exciting. So Wednesday, July 1st, 1992, was my first day on the job, and I had zero experience. I walked to work that night. My hands were trembling. I was excited. I had shiny new black boots. I was rocking the blue polyester pants. I had a shiny badge. I had a duty belt with a new gun and handcuffs that were shiny. And man, I was excited. So I was trying to get my keys in the lock of the back door of the police department. And as I'm fumbling with the lock, the door opened up from the inside. And there was a man I had never met before, but it was his last day on the job. I was his replacement. His boots were not shiny. His badge had lost some of that shine and glitter. And he looked at me and sized me up and said, "Are you my replacement?" And I said, Yeah. I was like a puppy, man. Yeah, I'm the new guy. And he looked at me. He said, "Well, you can effing have it." Yeah. And then he kind of pushed by me, got into his car, and rode off into the sunset. And I made a vow to myself that night. I made a vow that I was not going to go out that way. I was not going to retire crabby and hating the world and just, ugh. See, I was going to change the world. Yeah. I had the ideas that were going to change the world. This world is not going to change Tim Eggebraaten. Right. Let me tell you about that. And so I got excited and I got into it. I worked nights for the first 6.5 years, and my weekends were Monday and Tuesday, and I loved it. It was exciting, it was thrilling, it was adrenaline pumping, everything I thought it was going to be and more, but I slowly started to change, and I didn't recognize it. I started to get an us versus them mindset. It seemed like everybody I was dealing with on the night shift was either going to run away from me, lie to me, square up and fight me, or do all three. And so my world started to be broken down into two parts, the cops and everybody else. I could trust the cops. Everybody else I wasn't too sure about. It started to permeate into my off-duty time. And one cold night, pretty early in my career, my dispatcher gave me a call on the radio. And he sent me to the Holiday Inn in Detroit Lakes. And my dispatcher's voice matched my attitude. We fed off of each other. Because that us versus them was part of us. And that's not just a cop thing. I would bet you in your lives you have experienced some of this us versus them. I traveled to Mesa in the wintertime to play music, and there's some senior communities there, 55 and up. I've got a fake ID that gets me in because I'm 52. So I get into these communities and I'm doing my music, and I see a little bit of us versus them going on in there. Even the little things like pickleball versus tennis. The tennis club, they get chippy with the pickleball people because the pickleball people are going to rule the dang world, and it's us versus them. And boy, oh boy, it's my community versus your community. And don't go outside of the compound, because if you go outside of the compound, it's dangerous out there. And you start to get that us versus them. So it's not just a cop thing. But it was happening to me, and I didn't even recognize it. So my dispatcher says, go out to the Holiday Inn, check out some guy, and yeah, blah, blah. I said, 10-4. And I'm thinking, man, I am a cop on the mean streets of Detroit Lakes, the big city. Yeah, I don't have time for this stuff. So I got to the Holiday Inn, and as soon as I walked into the lobby, it was one of those moments that's forever tattooed in my brain. It's like if I ask you right now, what were you doing and where were you when you first heard the terror attack information on 9/11? Most of us can go right back to that moment. We can see it in color. We can see who we were with, what we were doing. And this was one of those moments for me. This was like my 9/11. When I walked in to the Holiday Inn, as clearly as I see you sitting here right now, I can see this gentleman standing there, probably in his mid-60s. I can see his gray hair. He's skinny. I can see his brown eyes. Man, something about those brown eyes. And I can see his little brown dress shoes. And right next to his left foot, I see a white plastic Walmart bag that probably contained all of his life's possessions. So I got my notebook out, started to talk to this guy, and I asked him his name. He told me his name was Norman. Writing down all of my information, and it didn't take long in my conversation with Norman to realize that something was up. He wasn't quite all there. He wasn't a danger to himself, certainly wasn't a danger to me or anybody else, but he was just a little confused. You see, Norman got on the bus in Minneapolis and was heading to Detroit, Michigan, because Norman had an idea that was going to revolutionize the way Detroit manufactures automobiles. And so I'm jotting all this down, and Norman also told me he was a caddy for Tiger Woods. Okay, you got it, Norman. And I'm getting all my information down, and I said, well, how can I help you, Norman? What am I supposed to do? Detroit Lakes, like a lot of communities, don't have a lot of resources available for a guy like Norman. He didn't do anything wrong or illegal, so I wasn't going to lock him up. My wife really frowns on me taking guys like Norman home with me. That didn't fly, so I wasn't going to take Norman home and say, hey, honey, can you watch him for a few hours? But what we did have was a Salvation Army voucher system, where an officer could assess the needs of the individual, and we could get him maybe a hotel room for the night, or a bag of groceries, or a tank of gas to get him to the next community. I said, Norman, I can help you out. Let's get you a hotel room for the night. In the morning, you can get up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and figure out where to go from there. You see, he was on his way to Detroit, Michigan, saw the sign that said Detroit Lakes, and he said, oh, I must be close enough. So he got off the bus, went to the Walmart in DL, lost his jacket right away in the men's room, and a good Samaritan gave him a ride to the Holiday Inn, where the desk clerk then called the law enforcement, and enter this young cop that had already started to develop a crust, just kind of a layer around me. And Norman started to chip away at that crust. So I said, Norman, let's get you a hotel room. He thought, man, that would be great. Grabbed his Walmart bag, put him in my car, and I took him to the office, grabbed my paperwork, and we went to another hotel. And I walked in, and it was late at night, so there was only one desk clerk working. And as I walked in, I made a big entrance, and I said, hey, I'd like you to meet Storm and Norman. And Norman just kind of smiled and shook his head, and he said, oh no, I'm not Stormin. I'm just a Norman. Just a kind, gentle man that was chipping away at this young cop's crust. I filled out the paperwork, wished them both a good evening, and I started to walk out. And Norman looked at me, and he said, wait a minute. And he was looking at me with those brown eyes of his, something about those eyes. But he was looking at me in a way that nobody had looked at me like that prior to then. And he was looking at me in a way that nobody has looked at me like that since then. See, Norman was looking into my eyes with those brown eyes of his, and I felt like he was looking into my soul. It seemed like we were locked in each other's gaze. It seemed like a long time. I know it was probably just a few seconds. But I was locked in his gaze, and he simply said to me, I want to remember the people who have helped me. I want to remember the people who have helped me. I didn't know what to say. I just kind of broke my gaze with him, and I just turned around and I shuffled out to my police car, and I sat down in my squad car that night in this parking lot of this hotel in Detroit Lakes, and I started to cry. And you have to understand that Tim Eggebraaten at that stage of life did not cry. I wasn't against it. I don't think it's a sign of weakness. It just wasn't something that I did. And there I was sitting in my car sobbing. And I remember thinking to myself, who have I become? Because this was not the Tim Eggebraaten that started out in law enforcement to help people. This was not the Tim Eggebraaten that Kenny and Pat Eggebraaten from Fisher, Minnesota raised to be caring and conscious and thoughtful to look out for the Normans of the world. Somewhere along the path, this kid that started out in law enforcement for the right reasons, somewhere along the road, things happened, and I started to lose that focus. I started to lose that passion, that purpose. I think that happens in a lot of people's lives, where we start out a stage of life, whether it's retirement, whether it's a new job, whether it's family things, dynamics that are changing. I think we start out with the right ideas and the right mindset, but things happen. Maybe we get disillusioned that, oh, this wasn't how I thought it was going to be, and things change, and we can lose that focus. And Norman came into my life and rocked my world. See, I don't think things happen by accident. I really don't. I don't think it's an accident that you are here. I don't think it's an accident or a mistake that you're sitting next to the people you're sitting next to. I think there's a purpose. And you can call that fate. You can call it karma, the stars, whatever you want to call it. It is my belief that God put Norman into my life because I was losing that rhythm, I was losing that harmony. So Norman entered into my life, grabbed me by the shirt, shook me up, and said, "Wake up! Wake up, Tim Eggebraaten, focus! What is your purpose? What are you doing here?" And sometimes those Normans are subtle in our lives, and we don't even know the Normans are there. Maybe the Norman in your day today is going to be the person at the grocery store. Maybe the Norman in your day that's going to remind you that something's just kind of off. Maybe that Norman in your day today is going to be the waitress at the restaurant you go to eat. Maybe the Norman is wearing a green t-shirt today, volunteering and helping put this whole thing on. Maybe that's going to be your Norman today. I think about Norman a lot. I think about all of these opportunities where Normans are put into our lives. But I also think, what if you are the Norman today for somebody? What if you are the one that's going to cause somebody to think and reevaluate where they're at and what they're doing? What if it's you? And you don't even know you're doing it. You're just smiling and opening the door for somebody, or helping somebody pick up their oranges that they dropped out here. Maybe that's you being a Norman to somebody. We just don't know when it's going to happen, who it's going to be, or how it's going to change us. But if it does change us, if it does tell us to stop and think, man, I got to change some things in my life. There are some things I can work on. There are so many things in our lives that are out of our control. So many things in our daily lives that we have zero control over, but one thing we have 100% control over 100% of the time is our attitude. We have choices in our attitude. So there are thousands of techniques and tactics that we can use in our daily life to help improve our attitude. I've narrowed the list down to 4. And these are things that I have been doing for many years, and I'm kind of coming backwards on this whole idea. These are techniques that I've used for many years, but I'm just starting to study and learn why they work. There are actual scientific people that are way smarter than me that study this stuff. And it's amazing. So if by chance you have decided that I want to be a more positive person. Maybe you're sitting there thinking, Eggebraaten, I am the most positive person on the planet. Back off, dude. That could very well be. But if you decide there's an area in your life where you could maybe improve and focus on that attitude, there are 4 things we can do. The first thing that we can do to help improve our attitude is to start by making positive thinking a habit. And we start right now. Vikings fans, I'm sorry. Let me start out by saying that I'm peeling off a scab here from the 1998 Vikings. I get that. 1998 was the year. That was the year we were going to take it all. Last year was the year. The year before that was really the year. Okay, I'll admit every year's the year for me. Every year is the year the Vikings are going to win the Super Bowl. But this year really is the year. All right. Because, by the way, Detroit Lakes, Adam Thielen. I say Adam, you say Thielen. Adam? Thielen. There we go. He'll be very proud. But this is the year. 1998 was the year. We had weapons at our disposal. One of our weapons on our team was Gary Anderson, the kicker. He was the first professional kicker to go the whole regular season without missing a field goal and without missing an extra point. He was perfect. Kick, good. Kick, good. The guy was automatic. So we went the regular season, didn't miss, got into the playoffs. Gary, kick, 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 perfect. Did not miss. Got to the NFC Championship game. The winner goes to the Super Bowl. We're playing the Dirty Bird Atlanta Falcons. And 2 minutes and 7 seconds left of the game. We're up by 7. Gary's going to kick a field goal to seal the deal. I have a house full of friends and family, and we are excited. We're on the edge of our seat. Gary missed. Hey, guys, relax. Hey, this is the Vikings. Oh, crap, this is the Vikings. I can't watch. 2 minutes and 7 seconds left. Atlanta gets the ball back. They go, they score, they tie it up. Overtime, they beat us in overtime. My friends, I did not care about my attitude at that stage of life. I said, get out. Get out of my house. I kicked everybody out of my house. Bye-bye. Get out. Kicked them all out. And about 2 weeks after the game, I was talking with a friend of mine. And this friend of mine is one of those people, and I need you to focus right up here because I don't want you looking at your spouse or the people you're here with. Look up here, focus. This person, this friend of mine, is one of those negative Nellies, one of those Debbie Downers, one of these constantly negative people. So don't look at the person next to you. Oh, I know who's negative around here, because they're probably looking at you too. But my friend, we're talking about the game, and it was still fresh and sore, and he said, oh, I knew Gary was going to miss. I said, what now? Oh, yeah, I knew he was going to miss. One of those negative Nellies. I'm like, you did not know he was going to miss. He didn't miss all season. He missed one kick. So all season long, you were saying, I knew he was going to miss, and you were wrong. You were right once. But that's what negative people do. They wrap themselves up like bubble wrap, and they tell themselves, oh. And so when something happens, like Gary Anderson missing a field goal, they can say, oh, I told you, see? I knew that was going to happen. Hogwash. Hogwash, you did not know. And this whole habit thing is something that we need to practice. It's like a muscle. See, attitude, I don't believe, is genetic. I did the 23andMe thing to find my DNA, and bad attitude was nowhere in my 23andMe results. Case in point, that guy right next to me there was my father. He lived 78 years of positive thinking, positive attitude. His wife, my mother, was equally as positive. Were they positive all the time? Absolutely not. But most of the time. My dad was diagnosed with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. There's no cure. The doctor said, Kenny, you're going to die. And we went on trips. Remember when I said nothing happens by accident? His diagnosis coincided perfectly with my retiring from the Detroit Lakes Police Department. I retired, and then he got diagnosed, and we said, Dad, we are traveling. So in January of 2017, I packed up my guitar. We drove from Detroit Lakes, Minnesota down to Southwest Florida so I could play music, and my dad rode shotgun. In March of 2017, we drove from Detroit Lakes to Mesa, Arizona so I could play guitar, and my dad rode shotgun. In July of 2017, we flew to Las Vegas to watch 4 straight days of 10-hour days of barbershop choruses and quartets. That would kill a lot of you. Man, it was amazing, and we loved it. My sisters took him to Baltimore. My sisters took him to Texas. He traveled and traveled, and every morning when we were on these road trips, My dad would wake up and he'd have his oxygen canister right behind him. And we'd get him loaded up in the car. We'd get the canister, the oxygen thing plugged in. And he would sit there and he'd smack the dashboard of the Subaru. And he'd say, "Tim Bob, I wonder what today's adventures are going to be." Just an amazing mindset. It was a habit for him. It carried my dad and it carried my mom literally to the day they died. It was, oh, it's raining out. Some people, we got a big winter storm coming. Some people would be, "Oh my gosh, it's another storm." And my mom would seriously look at that and say, "Oh boy, I bet you the bunny rabbits are going to have fun," and she would look at something positive. Amazing. Another thing that we can do is to write somebody a letter. Now, I haven't made up any of these things. These things aren't techniques that I have designed or developed. These are just techniques that I've been applying. And there's a whole area of positive psychology out there where scientific people research these techniques. I'd like you to think in your mind, think of 3 people in your lives that have influenced you. 3 people that have helped you get to where you're at. Maybe it's somebody from history you've never even actually met. Or maybe it was a coach, a teacher, a parent, your spouse, somebody that inspires you. Now, what if you wrote that person a letter? Put pen to paper, old school letter. I'm not talking tweets or text messages. I'm talking old school pen and paper. If you want to take the time and draw the little emojis, you go ahead and draw the emojis and LOL all you want. But write that person a letter telling them, I think you're inspirational because you're always upbeat. You're always there for your friends. Whatever your reasoning is, why that person inspires you. There have been studies that have shown that this practice, for the sender, the person sending that letter, the results, the physical and the mental results are similar to those of Prozac. Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. So if you set a goal to write somebody a letter a week, that's 4 letters a month. Do it for 3 months. That's only 12 letters. What the research is showing us is that it will boost, it will help your attitude. My dad received one of these letters from a friend of mine that was at a similar conference, and she had heard about those effects of the letter writing. So she decided she was going to write my dad a letter because my dad influenced a lot of people. And I was with my dad when he got the letter, and I used his smartphone to take pictures of his letter so he would have it with him all the time. And the letter was simple. All of these techniques are simple, but man, sometimes they're not easy. But the simple letter just said, "Kenny Eggebraaten, I just want to let you know that you inspire me because you're a positive person. You're a good father to your kids." And they just listed a few things. When hospice came in to visit with my dad, the hospice social worker sat down and my dad said, "Tim Bob, go to my office. On the desk, up on top, on the little shelf, there's a blue envelope. Grab that for me." So I went into his office where all of his important papers were, grabbed that blue envelope, brought it into him, and he showed that social worker that letter, that simple letter that took my friend maybe 10 minutes to write. And my dad told the social worker that that letter was more powerful to him than the morphine he was on. Powerful stuff. That was in November of 2017. And so that letter impacted my dad. It impacted the people around him. It's hopefully impacting you. And that letter is having ripple effects. A simple thing that a friend did, and she got the benefits out of that same letter. Powerful stuff. Another thing that we can do is to filter the negative. Man, oh man, oh man. How many of you have smartphones? Yeah. Do what? Yours is dumb? Oh yeah, well, how many of you have a dumb phone? Yeah, it's a good one. But we have never been more connected as a society and more disconnected.
Yeah.
Man, oh man. I love social media. I'm all over Facebook and YouTube, and I love the whole social media thing. Twitter, I have not figured out. If you can figure out Twitter for me, let me know how that goes for you. But for the most part, I love the social media, and I could plug in my phone to there, and I could run my Facebook feed right now, and it's painless. It really is, because I apply the filters that are built into Facebook. And I also apply my own filters. If some of my relatives or if some of my friends are constantly bashing other people, I just don't need to see that. So I choose not to. And so my Facebook feed is full of inspirational things and people saying good things about each other and positive things. It's powerful. We also need to work on this filter of our mouth. Because if I'm tweeting something or texting something or putting something on social media that's really antagonistic and fighting with people, and I see that person in face-to-face, how is my relationship going to be with that person? Or even if it's somebody that I've never met, and I am just spouting off on social media about, man, oh man, this is wrong with our world, and this is right with our world, and you're an idiot if you think this way, and man, if I'm saying all that, and my friends and my family that feel that way, how am I alienating them? So I'm not suggesting that you sweep all the stuff under the rug and you just don't have an opinion. By all means, have an opinion. We all need to have our beliefs and our thoughts and be proud of them. But I just don't know what benefit there is for me personally if the President of the United States tweets something and then people start discussing that tweet. I don't need to jump in on there and say what I feel about the tweet. It has nothing to do with me. And it's just gonna inflame our relationships. So filter that. Negative stuff is what I encourage. And it's all there. All the tools are there. And the biggest filter, I think, is the one we use right up here in our own head. If we decide that our attitudes need some work, the fourth thing that we can do is to count our blessings. Physically, literally counting our blessings every single night before we go to bed. If you're tech savvy and you have an app on your phone, you can get applications and say, they can set reminders. I'm testing out an app right now called 3 Good Things. And again, there's scientific studies that are being done that show that if we remind ourselves every night of the 3 to 5 good things that happened during that day, and then in the morning when we wake up, we remind ourselves that, man, we've got a lot of good things going on. If we start our day that way, that we'll start to see more good popping out. My wife, bless her heart, loves Ford Mustang convertibles. She's the cutie patootie driving that cute little Ford Mustang. And she's always loved Ford Mustang convertibles. We could be driving along and in the Twin Cities here where there's 87 lanes of traffic both ways and a million cars and trucks and black and white and all these different beautiful cars. And she'd say, oh, what kind of car is that? And I'd be driving and say, honey, there is a Ford Mustang convertible. Oh, I like it. Yeah, I do too. Oh, what kind of car is that? I'd say, honey, there's also a Ford Mustang convertible. I like it. But they pop out at her. On my way down here, we're having some water issues at our house, some drinking water issues. I'll bet you, and it's on my mind, and on the way down to the cities, I'll bet you I saw no fewer than 100 water trucks, like Culligan and all these. they're like, there's no way all these water trucks were there before, and they're popping out at me. But that's the same thing with looking for good things. If we're looking for the good things, they're going to pop out at us. If we're intent on finding the bad stuff, man, the bad things are going to be there. They're going to pop right out at you. Again, I get criticized sometimes of, well, Tim, you can't ignore that stuff. You can't just poo-poo everything. Put on the rose-colored glasses. I agree. But I'm not suggesting that. You give yourself a little pep talk in the morning. There were many times as chief of police when I would get up to that back door of our police department, and I knew what was going to be happening on the other side of that office. I knew what was on my plate that day, and I wasn't excited about it. But I knew if I walked into that office with the way I was feeling, I would contaminate my whole staff. I didn't want to do that. So I would give myself a little bit of pep talk before I walked in that door, and I'd say, okay, I've got a good job. I'm getting paid well for what I do. I get vacation time. I can floss. So I've got that going for me. And I'd get myself built up so I could at least walk in and muster up, hey, good morning, everybody. And then get back to my office and handle the stuff that needed to be handled. I wanted to build up my staff instead of contaminate them with the junk that was going on in my head. That's a choice that we have. We have so many choices in our daily lives. Choices, choices, choices. 6 guitar strings on a guitar. If one of them is off, man, the whole thing just sounds horrible. But if all 6 are in harmony with each other, beautiful music can be made. The time to work on these techniques is when we're feeling good, when things are going well. We need to build that up because it's not always going to be good. There's going to be things that happen in our lives. For me, my perfect storm started in May of 2011. My wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. Our oldest son was graduating from high school, and I was in the running to be chief of police. So all 3 of those things by themselves are emotional and they're life-changing. But we had rhythm. As a family, we had our rhythm. We had harmony. We were confident in my wife's caregivers, 6 years cancer-free. Woo-hoo! We were confident in my son's elementary, middle school, high school career. We were confident that he was going to go out and rock the world. He's going to be a dentist in about 3 weeks, graduating from the U of M. He's rocking it. We were confident that my leadership that I had, my chiefs, my captains, my sergeants, my training, I was confident that I was prepared to be the chief of police. In July of 2011, I got sworn in, and my family was there. My extended family was there. Remember, I'm the favorite of the family, so my sisters boycotted because they knew I was a favorite. But my law enforcement family was there. I never had a biological brother. So police officers are my brothers and sisters. I still feel that way, very strongly about that. The gentleman in the uniform up there, his name is Chad. And Chad and his beautiful wife Chantel and 3 of their 4 kids were at my swearing-in ceremony. Chad and Chantel were one of the first couples that my wife and I met when we moved to Detroit Lakes. Chad and I started about 6 months apart. He started about 6 months after I did. We grew up in the police department together. We fought side by side. We saw crazy, funny things that you cannot make up. We saw horrible, tragic things together. And as we grew and as we got older in the department and I became a sergeant, our social life kind of separated a little bit, but we were tight. We were brothers. So July of 2011, I got sworn in. Fast forward to May of 2012. So 10 months later, Mother's Day, May 13th of 2012, It's a beautiful Sunday. We were celebrating my wife, celebrating her mom and my mom as being moms, celebrating the moms. It was a great Mother's Day. That night, I was doing music, one of my favorite things, with some of my favorite people, some seniors at a transitional care facility in Detroit Lakes, and I was playing with a big band, like a Glenn Miller orchestra. They were doing some gigs that summer, and they wanted a vocalist, and so we were doing Mac the Knife. Oh, the shark, babe, bow, bow, has those teeth there. And it was amazing. Loving it. They were loving it. The band was loving it. I was in seventh heaven. And as I was singing, my phone was in my pocket blowing up. I got home, and it was another one of those incidents that I can clearly remember. It was another, like a 9/11 for me. So I'm on the deck of my home going through my messages, and one of the messages was from Chantel, Chad's wife. And she just said, we need to find Chad. You know where Chad is? And so I'm going through my messages, and Chad's dad called me. Talking to his dad on the phone, we need to find Chad. You know where Chad is? I said, I'm pretty sure he's working today. Tell you what, let me give him a call. I'll call you right back. As soon as I hung up with him, my phone rang again, and it was one of my young police officers. I picked it up, and I could tell right away by the tone of his voice something was wrong. And he just said, Chad's dead. I said, where are you at? So they told me where he was at. And I was walking through the mudroom of our house, and my wife met me. She could tell that something was wrong by the look on my face. And I just said, Chad's dead. That's all I knew. And I kind of sideswiped her, got by her, and I felt horrible that I couldn't be there. But I switched into chief mode. And on the way to the scene in my police car, got lights and sirens going, and all of these things are going through my head. Okay, chief, you're the boss. The buck stops here, baby. I've got to be a friend to this family. That beautiful girl next to me was Chad and Chantel's oldest daughter, their oldest child. She's my goddaughter. I got to be there for this family. I have to be a leader to my team. I have to be a leader to my family, my own family. And all these things were running through my head. And as much as I worked with policies and procedures, I thought, man, it would sure be nice if I could open up my computer, fire up the policies and procedure manual, and see, oh yeah, here it is, chapter 13, paragraph 4, line 7. This is what you do when one of your best friends and partners takes his life. There's no policy manual. So I did the next best thing. With Chad's dad sitting in my car, I got on the phone. I started making phone calls. See, when I got to that grassy ditch area where my police officers were there, my deputy sheriffs were there, emergency medical people were there, I saw Chad's red Chevy pickup. I still didn't know what was going on. As I walked up, I saw that my boy had gone off duty that night, and he took his own life with his duty sidearm, still in uniform. So there he was. So all of these thoughts, my rhythm and harmony of life was way off. But you keep on, right? You keep on keeping on. And so I got on this phone because as a rookie police officer and as a sergeant and as a canine handler and as chief of police, I would go to conferences and I would network. And I would get to meet people. So I look out at the room here and I see individuals, but I see people that are here together. Some people you don't know. I see a community, but I see people that will be there for you when the stuff hits the fan. So I started calling other chiefs. I started calling command staff because I couldn't call my people. that stuff doesn't roll downhill. I mean, I needed to call other chiefs, and I got a hold of some people that helped us get through that time. They sent people. There's no way, no how, I would have gotten through any of that as a team, and we wouldn't have gotten through it as a family. I had another police officer later that summer that attempted to take his life, and we got him the help he needed. But it was a rotten summer. But we had a lot of people to stand by us. This is another sing-along portion of the show, so if you're standing up, you're going to be singing along. Here we go. When the night has come, land is dark, and the moon is the only light we'll see. Well, I won't be afraid, no, I won't be afraid, just as long as you stand by me. Darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand now. Stand by me, stand by me. If the skies that we look upon tumble and fall, all the mountains crumble down to the sea, I won't cry, I won't cry, no, I will not shed one tear, just as long as you stand by me. Sing it now. Darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, nice. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand now. Stand by me, stand by me, stand by me. Beautiful. Very nice. Good job, you. Beautifully done. Choices. 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 I look around the room here, and I was really hoping that some of you would be wearing bib overalls. Trust me, some of my conferences I go to, they wear bibs. But nobody's wearing bibs. Choices. People choose to wear bib overalls, and ding dang, do they have pockets? Do they not have pockets? They have pockets. Pockets in the front, pockets, pockets, pockets. I was a young correctional officer in Moorhead, Minnesota, and one of the choices that we had was to wear rubber gloves while we were doing our pat-down searches. Because when somebody got arrested and brought in, that was what we had to do. Pat them down, make sure there weren't any weapons, drugs. If there was money, we'd document that. And I chose not to wear the rubber gloves. Because back in the 1980s, those rubber gloves were thick, and they were powdery, and the powder would get in my hands, and powder would get on my shirt and on my pants. I didn't like them, so I didn't wear them, and I whined. And so I chose not to wear rubber gloves a lot. Well, the Moorhead Police Department arrested this guy wearing bib overalls. And this man was huge, probably 6'5", 325. I mean, he was a big feller wearing bib overalls. Let's just call him Bubba, because in your mind you're thinking Bubba. Let's just call him Bubba. And Bubba gets arrested, and Bubba was really, really drunk that day, but Bubba was super cooperative, and that was a good thing. So Bubba's up there assuming the position. He's got his hands on the counter, and I'm going through with my gloveless hands and checking his pockets and pulling stuff out. And you know how on bib overalls you have pockets here and pockets here? And in between these pockets, there's a flap that looks like a pocket. It's not a pocket. Yeah, that's not a pocket at all, my friends. So I'm going in with my gloveless hands, getting stuff out of Bubba's pockets, and I get to that part to go into his pockets, there wasn't a pocket. And I'm reaching in there, and Bubba made another choice that day. Bubba chose not to wear underwear. Okay. So I'm doing my thing, and Bubba's doing his thing, and I'm touching things that I ought not be touching. And Bubba made another choice that night in his attitude. He had his hands on the counter, and he looked at me, and he just said, So I made a choice in my attitude. I chose to recognize that situation for exactly what it was. Disgusting. Super disgusting. But kind of funny, and I thought, well, you know, my mom always said, don't be embarrassed unless you're doing something illegal or unethical or immoral, then be embarrassed. If you're not doing any of those things, don't be embarrassed. And my mom had a big influence on me, so I made that choice that I wasn't going to be embarrassed. One of the things that I do to help me remember that I have a choice is I carry a challenge coin with me. I usually have 3 coins in my pocket, the real pocket, not the pocket in between the pockets. Yeah. But I carry a challenge coin with me. And I designed this coin. On the one side it just says, I am, I can, I will. And that was a saying that my mom had said many times growing up, and even till about 2 months before she passed away. And it just says, find your beat, the rhythm of life. On the backside it says challenge, because it's a challenge for me, and I ask you to take that challenge today. Take the challenge of who are you going to write a letter to, and make that positive thinking a habit. Who in your life is going to help you filter the negative? Who in your life is going to help you count your blessings? How will you count your blessings today? And finally, my friends, who is going to be your Norman today? And who will you be a Norman for? God bless you guys very much. Thank you for your time. And I know you're sticking around to hear me finish my presentation. You're not here for the raffle drawing at the end. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. God bless you.